On a cold morning in the Scottish Highlands, the surface of a vast, dark lake suddenly breaks. A long shape rises from the water, glides silently across the surface, and disappears beneath the waves before anyone can reach a camera. Witnesses stare in disbelief. Some claim it had a neck. Others say it looked like a massive serpent. Within hours, the story spreads through nearby villages. Within days, it spreads across the world. But what exactly did they see? For nearly a century, reports like this have fueled one of the most famous mysteries in modern folklore, the legend of the Loch Ness Monster. Sightings number in the thousands. Photographs, sonar readings, and eyewitness accounts have all been presented as evidence that something enormous may live beneath the lake's dark waters. Yet despite decades of scientific investigation, the mystery remains unresolved. Is there truly an unknown creature hiding in the depths of this Scottish lake? Or is the monster of Loch Ness something else entirely, a complex phenomenon created by nature, perception, and belief? To understand the mystery, we first need to understand the place where it lives. Loch Ness stretches through the Great Glen of Scotland, like a dark scar carved into the landscape. Nearly 23 miles long and more than 750 feet deep, it is one of the largest bodies of fresh water in the United Kingdom. Its waters appear almost black, not because of depth alone, but because of peat washed down from the surrounding hills, staining the water and reducing visibility to just a few feet. What lies beneath the surface is therefore largely invisible. The loch itself was formed roughly 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. As glaciers retreated across northern Europe, they carved deep valleys through the highlands. One of these valleys filled with meltwater and rainfall, creating the long, narrow lake we now call Loch Ness. From the beginning, it was a place of unusual geological conditions. The loch sits along the Great Glen Fault, a massive fracture in the Earth's crust. This geological feature gives the loch its extreme depth and steep underwater slopes. In many places, the bottom drops sharply just a few yards from shore, plunging into cold darkness where sunlight cannot reach. Even more unusual is the loch's internal structure. Because of temperature differences, the water forms layers known as a thermocline. Warmer water floats above colder water, creating boundaries that can trap currents and cause strange internal movements beneath the surface. In addition, Loch Ness experiences powerful seiche waves, underwater oscillations that can move through the lake like slow, invisible tides. Some of these internal waves can reach heights of nearly 100 feet beneath the surface. In other words, Loch Ness is far from a calm and simple lake. Yet the legend of the monster did not truly begin until the early 20th century. In 1933, a new road was constructed along the northern shore of the loch. For the first time, travelers could easily view the lake from multiple points along its length. Tourism increased almost immediately, and with it came something unexpected: sightings. Drivers reported seeing large disturbances in the water. Boaters described enormous shapes moving beneath the surface. Some witnesses claimed to see a long neck rising from the lake, followed by a massive body. Within months, newspapers began referring to the creature as the Loch Ness Monster, and the world became fascinated. The story exploded into international headlines in 1934 when a photograph appeared that seemed to confirm the monster's existence. Known today as the surgeon's photograph, the image showed a small head and neck rising from the water against a distant shoreline. It appeared to depict a prehistoric creature, perhaps a surviving plesiosaur, an ancient marine reptile that lived during the age of dinosaurs. The photograph quickly became one of the most famous images in cryptozoological history. For decades, it was considered the strongest visual evidence that the monster might be real. But the truth behind the photograph would eventually reveal something far more complicated. In the 1990s, researchers uncovered the story behind the image. The photograph had been staged as an elaborate hoax. The monster was actually a small model mounted on a toy submarine, photographed in such a way that it appeared enormous against the distant background. The revelation was devastating for believers, but it did not end the mystery, because even after the hoax was exposed, sightings continued. Today, more than 1,000 reported encounters have been recorded in the official Loch Ness Monster Sightings Register. Witnesses include fishermen, tourists, pilots, and even scientists. Some describe long serpentine shapes moving through the water. Others report large humps rising and falling on the surface. While many sightings could easily be explained as floating debris or large fish, a small number remain difficult to categorize, and that uncertainty has kept the mystery alive. But eyewitness testimony alone is rarely enough for science, so researchers began looking beneath the surface. Beginning in the 1960s, scientists launched a series of sonar expeditions across the lake. Sonar works by sending sound waves through the water and measuring how they bounce back from objects below. The idea was simple. If a large animal truly lived in the loch, sonar should detect it. During several surveys, unusual sonar contacts were recorded, large moving shapes deep beneath the surface. Some researchers believed these readings might represent massive fish or unknown animals moving through the depths. But sonar has limitations. Without direct visual confirmation, interpreting those signals remains extremely difficult. In later decades, technology advanced even further. Robotic submersibles equipped with cameras were sent deep into the lake to search for evidence of large animals. These underwater robots explored areas far beyond the reach of human divers, descending hundreds of feet into near total darkness. What they found was fascinating, but not monstrous. The loch contained enormous populations of fish, particularly eels and salmon. In certain lighting conditions, schools of fish could appear as a single large shape on sonar. Debris drifting through layered water currents could also produce unusual acoustic reflections. Still, some readings remained unexplained. The mystery refused to disappear. Perhaps the most ambitious investigation came in 2018, when scientists launched a massive environmental DNA survey of Loch Ness. All living organisms leave tiny traces of genetic material in the water, fragments of skin cells, scales, mucus, and waste. By collecting water samples from across the lake and analyzing their DNA, researchers hoped to identify every species living within it. If a large unknown animal existed in the loch, its DNA should appear in the samples. The results were both revealing and puzzling. The DNA survey detected thousands of species: fish, birds, mammals, plants, and microscopic organisms. But there was no evidence of large unknown reptiles, dinosaurs, or prehistoric creatures. The famous plesiosaur hypothesis was effectively ruled out. However, one unexpected discovery stood out. The lake contained an enormous quantity of eel DNA, far more than scientists had anticipated. European eels are known to grow to impressive lengths. Most reach only a few feet, but rare specimens can become surprisingly large. Some researchers began to wonder whether unusually large eels might account for at least some of the reported sightings. In dark water, a large eel twisting near the surface could easily resemble a long serpentine creature. But even this explanation has limits. No eel large enough to match the most dramatic descriptions has ever been found in the lake, so the mystery continued to evolve. To understand the phenomenon more deeply, scientists began examining the psychology of perception itself. Human brains are incredibly skilled at recognizing patterns. sometimes too skilled. When we see partial shapes or ambiguous movements, our minds often fill in the missing information, creating familiar forms out of incomplete data. This process is known as pattern recognition bias. In environments like Loch Ness, where visibility is poor and expectations are high, the brain may transform ordinary sights into extraordinary ones. A floating log becomes a serpent. A distant boat wake becomes a moving creature. And once the idea of a monster exists, the brain begins looking for it everywhere. The power of belief can amplify this effect even further. Psychologists call this collective reinforcement. When stories circulate widely within a culture, people become more likely to interpret ambiguous experiences in ways that confirm those stories. By the mid-20th century, the Loch Ness Monster had become a global legend. Newspapers, television programs, and documentaries repeatedly reinforced the possibility that something mysterious might live in the lake. Every new sighting strengthened the myth, and every myth attracted new witnesses. Yet the story becomes even more intriguing when we look beyond Scotland. Across the world, similar legends exist in deep lakes and remote waters. Creatures resembling Nessie have been reported in Canada's Lake Okanagan, Sweden's Lake Storsjön, and China's Lake Tianqi. These stories often share strikingly similar descriptions: long necks, large humps, serpentine bodies moving silently through the water. Are these independent mysteries? Or are they reflections of the same psychological phenomenon? The answer may lie somewhere between biology and imagination. Some researchers have explored a far more speculative possibility. Could ancient marine animals have once migrated into freshwater lakes as glaciers melted thousands of years ago? To many scientists, this idea sounds improbable, but nature occasionally produces unexpected examples. In Siberia, the ancient Lake Baikal, the deepest lake on Earth, is home to a unique species of freshwater seal known as the nerpa. These seals are believed to have evolved from marine ancestors that somehow adapted to freshwater environments. If seals can adapt in such a way, could other marine animals have done the same? Most scientists remain skeptical, but the question illustrates how little we truly understand about ancient ecosystems. There is also another category of explanation, one rooted not in biology, but in physics. Loch Ness is known for producing unusually long-lasting wave patterns. Because of its narrow shape and steep underwater walls, disturbances in the water can travel great distances before dissipating. When a boat moves through the lake, its wake can transform into a series of rolling waves that travel for miles. Seen from certain angles, these waves can appear as a sequence of large humps moving across the surface. To an observer unfamiliar with the phenomenon, the illusion can be striking. It can look remarkably like a massive creature swimming just beneath the water. Historical accidents have also contributed to the legend. In 1952, a fishing vessel known as the Crusader capsized under mysterious circumstances on the loch. Though the cause was likely mechanical failure, the story fueled speculation that something powerful beneath the water had struck the boat. Other wrecks, such as the sunken vessel the Pansy, added to the growing narrative that strange forces might inhabit the depths. Over time, the boundary between real events and mythical interpretation began to blur, and the legend grew stronger. Yet, despite decades of exploration, no definitive biological evidence of a large unknown creature has ever been found in Loch Ness. No bones, no carcasses, no verified photographs. From a strict scientific perspective, this absence is significant. Large animals require stable populations to survive, which means there would need to be dozens, perhaps hundreds of individuals living in the lake. But the ecosystem of Loch Ness simply does not contain enough food to support such a population. The biological case for a giant monster grows weaker with every study, and yet the mystery refuses to disappear. Because something very real is happening in Loch Ness. People continue to report sightings. Cameras continue to capture strange shapes on the water. Sonar occasionally detects unexplained movements beneath the surface. Most of these events likely have natural explanations, but the sheer persistence of the phenomenon is remarkable. For nearly a century, the lake has continued to produce stories, images, and experiences that resist simple categorization. Perhaps the most important lesson of the Loch Ness Monster is not about hidden animals. It is about how humans interact with mystery. The lake itself is vast, dark, and difficult to study. Its geological conditions create unusual wave patterns and optical illusions. Its murky water hides almost everything beneath the surface, and its global reputation encourages observers to interpret what they see through the lens of legend. In such an environment, myth and reality begin to intertwine, and separating them becomes surprisingly difficult. So, does the Loch Ness Monster exist? If by monster we mean a giant prehistoric creature hiding beneath the lake, the scientific evidence suggests the answer is almost certainly no. But if we mean something else, a powerful combination of natural phenomena, human perception, and cultural storytelling, then the answer becomes far more interesting. Because the phenomenon itself is undeniably real, something in Loch Ness continues to capture the imagination of millions of people around the world. And perhaps that is the true mystery. The monster may not exist, but the mystery of Loch Ness absolutely does. And as long as the dark waters of the Scottish Highlands continue to conceal their depths, people will keep watching the surface, waiting for the moment when something strange breaks through again.